Hi, welcome back to Mike's Diabetes World. Current blood sugar 6 at 7.8. I have fully calibrated 1.10 units, and that's because I just had a correction done of almost 1 unit. After a little dip last night, getting down to 4.2, I came back up and had a pretty stable night. Not as flatlined as it has been, but we're doing okay. Now, if we switch over, yesterday was a pretty damn good day. 99% time in range, 1 below, so yesterday for 15 minutes I fell below. Average sugar is 6.4. Except for 15 minutes yesterday, I was within range. Now, if we take a look at it, save it, and I can send that to my diabetic nurse. Yay. Okay. Today, I want to talk to you about diabetic stories. And we all have diabetic stories, and we all try to come out as the big victor, and how we survived the worst diabetes situations ever. But are they a good story to help new diabetics? Stay tuned, we'll be right back. This channel is provided for informational purposes only. Contact your physician for any diagnostic or treatment plan. Okay, as I said before, diabetic stories. Every diabetic who's had diabetes for a while has these stories. But are they actually a good learning tool for new diabetics? What do we need to look out for when telling these stories? First of all, why scare a new diabetic? Oh yes, but when I started, we all had to learn how to be this diabetic, and it all just seems to be, oh yes, I was so great. You wouldn't be that great, but I was that great. There's got to be a moral of the story, and how can they have this stop from happening to them? I tell a story of mine of how I walked from Honolulu to Fiji. Now, you're all probably thinking, how can that can't be true. You can't walk from Honolulu to Fiji without drowning. But it's more symbolic. I knew I had to have my insulin while traveling. I knew that. I got on the plane in Vancouver, and I had packaged up all my insulin, and I said to the flight attendant, can we put this in your fridge? Yeah, sure, no problem. Before we came down and landed in Honolulu, I had said to the flight attendant, "Can I have my insulin, please?" She said, "Oh, leave it in the fridge. It'll be fine." It was the refrigerators were pulled off, new ones were put in, no one knew. I was completely oblivious. I was a young 14-year-old going off to Fiji. I didn't know. My parents were in Fiji. My mother and stepfather were working in Fiji. Okay, so we went there. I asked for my insulin around dinner time. No one could find my insulin, and here I'm starting to get a little worried. I knew I had to have my insulin. I didn't know at the time what sort of issues I would have. I know you had to keep taking your insulin. I knew that much. So we continued on. There was a doctor or a nurse or something on flight that said, "Well, have him walk." So I constantly walked. They had me up and walking because exercise was the only thing. And it had me up and, oh God. And we landed, and I had to go to a hospital to pick up their version of insulin, and it opened up a whole new story of how to get the insulin. My mother fought with the airline and got me new batches of insulin, and they've really started feeling better once I had that. Now, there has to be a moral. If you're going to use this as an instrument to teach new diabetics, there has to be a moral. I would say nowadays, don't let your insulin go. You can keep your insulin in cold packs while on the plane. You can keep it with you because if it gets out of refrigeration and gets up to room temperature, it can last for 28 days. And as soon as you get off, you can get it into the fridge and everything will be fine. So, make the positives. Always have your insulin with you. Teach the points about traveling with your insulin. You need to ensure it's kept as close to refrigeration as possible. Don't hand it over to a flight attendant to be in the fridge. Nowadays, we have a little bit more flexibility. But there's a moral, and how can they stay away from this? Don't be such the big macho star. Oh yes, I was great in keeping my body. I have a few war stories myself, but in talking to any new diabetic, I would not tell them, "I was told these stories when I began." Well, great. But why pass these on? Why do we always feel that, oh, they have to know the truth about diabetes and how terrible and how my aunt lost a foot to diabetes? It's a big change for new diabetic. And why are we putting them through all this sheer torture? I went through again this sheer torture of everyone I met. Oh, well, you got diabetes because you just ate so much sugar. Put enough stress on a new diabetic's life. So before you go off telling people all these stories, it's got to have a positive ending and it's got to have a moral to it. My moral to my story was don't travel with insulin because don't travel with insulin. Don't travel with A, insulin in your luggage, B, hand over your insulin, C, you can't get refrigerated packs. The whole point is teaching diabetics that they can live with the disease. The disease isn't the winner all the time. Yes, you have to take blood tests. Yes, you have to eat right. Yes, you have to exercise. But it doesn't always have to be negative. Let's win with some of the positives. If you're ever in a position to teach a new diabetic, whether it be one-on-one or in a class setting, be positive with your experiences. Show that they can overcome without them having to overcome. It's always nice and easy to say. I made it through that alive. I was very high by the time I reached Nandi, the airport in Fiji, and had to go get my insulin, and it was very late by the time we ate. Could I have done something different? Yes, I could have demanded my insulin back. I could have probably done more research about traveling with insulin, but I thought I had known that. And here we were discussing things. But I didn't discuss them. I just assumed that, yes, I packaged it up all nice, but my insulin was out for a few hours beforehand, getting to the airport until it was refrigerated all through the flight. I don't know, I can't remember how bad it was beforehand keeping your insulin refrigerated. If you're stocking insulin for long periods of time, yes, refrigeration is the best. Now, most insulins are around the 28 days of being at room temperature. Back then, it wasn't so lucky. We've evolved to this. I can remember when human insulin came out, and oh yes, it took a while for it all to get in. But I survived on how great I am. We all try to be that great diabetic in other people's lives. A lot of times we're not that person, but we try to win out. So, tell your stories, have a positive or moral ending. Don't show the bleak side. They will learn about that. If you have a dark story, make sure you have a positive ending to it. What did you learn from this? Just something to think about. With that, I hope you have a super day, and don't let diabetes win. Bye now. My email is mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com. mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com.